All right. So somebody wanted a tutorial on easing into other moves. Now, to me, that sounds like you want to learn how to set up combo hits or combo moves. All right. And that is a little bit difficult to explain because it's situational, meaning there is no one way to really do it. However, there are a couple of key methods. All right. Now, I talked about this before in a old tutorial, but there are what I do is easing frames, action frames, and then dead frames, in which the easing frames is the frames that literally set up your move, your action frame, if you will. The action frame is the actual move that you're trying to do. It's the climax of your actual movement. And the dead frames are the ending of that move. So the way I would explain it visually would be this is your easing frames or your setup frames, right? This is your action frame, right? And these are your dead frames. Sorry, I have a dog. She's a little needy. So that being said, all right, this is how most general movement goes. All right. Now I'll let it play as I explain more. All right. As you can see in this animation, he does quite a bit of stuff. All right. He does some punches, some kicks, some falls. He jumps once and then he starts levitating. All right. Now, the reason why I did this is to show as many things as I could possibly show within a small 1 to 2 second animation. All right. Now, we have end frames, we have starting frames, dead frames, and an action frame for each and every movement on every animation. Is just how it works. Now, depending on how fast your animation is going per second, that'll determine how many frames you'll need as a dead frame and an action frame and a starting frame. So it depends on how fast you're going. But for me, it's usually around 3 to 2 frames for end or start frames and 1 frame for an action frame of any type. All right. The only time it requires multiple action frames is when I'm doing consecutive hits, which is also what's in this animation. So I explained the start for punches. Now let's show the linking for actual combos. All right. When it comes to combo hits, all right, your action frame, your previous or first action frame, must set up the next move. Now, for here, there are 3 frames in between. These 3 frames are the start frames for this, but the end frames for this, okay? It's complicated. Basically, these two actions will share start and end frames at some point, and that's how combos work, all right? So for this one's end frame is right here, here, and here. As you can see, once the arm is done doing its punch, it goes in. But this arm, the one right here, starts going back and then starts going forward the moment this arm goes back. That's how you set up a combo when it comes to, well, the body or a simple combo. All right. It's a little more complicated. Actually, it might be a little more simple with projectiles, but it depends. But this is how you set up frames for combo hits. So basically, your combo or your 2 action frames will at some point share end frames and starting frames in order to link up. And once this happens, your other moves will also have to follow that same recipe in which they share the same end and start frames. Just like this move shared start frames and end frames with this move, right? Now it has to share frames with this move. All right. So the way I did this is once it goes into the punch, he does a little spin, he steps out a little bit, and then he does a kick. And then, of course, I have to make that kick link up to the other move by starting its end frames and starting this one's start frames. And once it does that, boom, there's the secondary hit. As you notice, it's not 3 frames in between, it's 2. The reason for that is because realistically, if somebody does a spinning kick or a roundhouse, the momentum carries throughout the entire body if they miss. So they're going to continue doing that roundhouse until they can physically stop it, which is extremely hard if you're doing a roundhouse at full speed. All right, with all of your strength. So that being the case, it'll pull the rest of the body, all right, unless the body is trying to stop the roundhouse. But since that's the case, I want the move to continue into a combo. I just let the momentum carry the actual body, right, in which he falls a little bit, but this leg will start going forward. So this move goes all the way out, goes in, starts ending, starts up this move, and then this move starts. Now, as you can see, this move isn't curved like this one. There's a reason for that. It's primarily to show that this is no longer momentum being carried. This is now just an attack, right? Or a very strong attack that ends, right? And this is where the end of the combo starts, right? Once this attack has come out, right, the character will start falling to the ground because he has nothing to carry under him, right? And I don't think you can do any more moves out of falling like that. So he falls to the ground, he kind of just squishes into the ground, and then his body starts going into a direction to set up the next move, all right, in which he does a slide. Now, when it comes to moving the whole body, right, the entire like stick figure, the entire thing, depending on how you're moving it, will determine how it'll look, okay? So if you're moving a ball and you just make it stretch to show that it's going fast or going in a direction, it's going to look all right. But if you're moving a actual humanoid stick figure, all right, and you try to stretch pieces of its body, it's not going to look right. So that being the case, you kind of have to, use effects to make the same thing kind of happen, all right? Or use a method of easing that I explained before, where it has easing frames into a fast movement with no effects. But for me, I like using effects. So I just make its body go into the ground a little bit, do a slide in which it kind of teleports, as you can see. And then for this move, since it's moving the whole body, I make the body slow down into a stop. Now, the way that you make things slow down in animations is that essentially for each frame, right? For the first starting frames, you will start with very fast movement by spacing the object from one frame and farther on the next. So basically, you start it in one position and then it's quickly in another position completely on the next frame. And as you go on through that animation, you make the object slowly slowly decrease in distance each frame. So basically, what's a good way to do this? You see this square right here? As you can see with the whole body right here. The moment this square goes over here, that's it doing a quick movement. But as you notice, the moment it teleports over here, the square suddenly starts getting closer and closer to, in distance when it comes throughout the animation. And that initiates a stop. Into immediately it just comes here, and then it starts going forward. In which it does the exact same thing to increase speed, where it starts slow in distance, it starts close to each other, and then slowly starts getting very, very far from itself as the animation goes. All right. Now, the next point of movement. This point of movement's a little more tricky because, simulating gravity is hard, okay? Because if you don't make the object move in a realistic motion, it's not going to look right. It's going to look like he either is plummeting for some reason, meaning his weight has changed mid-flight, which doesn't make any sense, right? Unless you animate it, or you're gonna make it look like he's just floating, and it just won't look right. So you have to make it. It's a little tricky with floating objects that are falling, or throwing objects. But essentially, you just want to make it do an arc. You want to imagine an arc, and as it reaches the maximum height, it slows down, and as it starts falling again, it starts speeding up again. All right, and of course, since he's doing a knee, and this move's already in the back, it can load up a kick. I make it slowly inch into a kick. Boom, kick. All right, and now for these frames, to completely throw you off, all right, I said screw it. Screw the easing frames. We're going to make him turn into a ball and then go backwards and then immediately turn into something else, all right? Same type of method in which he stops in midair, slows down, goes in one full direction, and then transforms into something else, right? And then from there, it's the same method I said with the speeding up and slowing down with the distance thing, in which he starts over here, then slowly gets closer and closer until he reaches a full stop, in which he starts going forward, and that's how he actually picks up speed. Now, I slowed it down so that way you can see the sword. But once again, it's situational, but it follows the same method, right? It depends on how you're animating. As you can see, teleports over here, pretty much. In this case, it's supposed to be a dash, but he pretty much teleports, right? And then once again, the square slowly gets closer in with each frame, right? as for the sword, right? The sword is a little bit different. Unlike the arms, right, which you can kind of slash with, they just don't. They wouldn't be effective like that. So you kind of just do straight punches and straight kicks or roundhouses, right? With swords, however, swords have a tendency to slide off the object, which is how they usually do damage unless they're stabbing. So that being the case, you can do this, right? You do this movement, and the object, the sword, would not have to stop moving. You can continuously keep moving it and make it do other stuff. But if it was a punch, you would have to stop the punch entirely to show that it's actually done damage, right? Or you make the other stick figure that's being attacked react in a certain way. But this is what you do for swords. Swords, you can either do a slash like this, or you can do a curved slash. It doesn't really matter, right? They'll look right because it's a sword. It's kind of odd, right? And then as you can see for the sword, because it's connected to an object, you want to simulate realistic movement. So it goes out, right? And as he pulls his arm in, the sword kind of lingers in the same position for a bit, right? And then he does another slash. But in this case, he does 3 consecutively. Now, this is how you make frames kind of split, okay, to simulate faster movement. The way that I do it, okay, is that I just make multiple things happen at once in one frame. I explained this before in the tutorial. I believe it was a speed tutorial. But basically, if he was to do 1 move per frame, right, that would be pretty fast because it's 16 moves theoretically per second. But if I add 3 moves every frame for 16, now we have a lot more. Now we have a lot more moves. Okay, I'm not gonna do math here. I'm sorry, but now we have a lot more moves per second. All right. So no, let's just say we have 12 moves. Let's just say we have 1 move every 12 seconds, and then I put 3 moves in every frame, right? Then we would have 36 moves per second. That would increase it by 3 times. So basically, the way to make things extremely fast sometimes is by adding more of that one object. And yes, this is applicable to pretty much every object that you're animating. All right, this can even be applied to this guy. Okay, I can make him have multiple arms in which each one is just, flickering on screen, and it'll still indicate fast movement. Which is kind of what I do here. As you can see, he doesn't have any load up frames for each slash. He just goes into another move immediately. Except for the last one. The last one sets up the very last move, which is a giant sword swipe, or a giant sword summon, if you will. And then the animation ends. So it's a little complicated with easing, but basically for combos, you want to make the action frame for the very last attack that you did start setting up the next one. So if you do a sword slash, you want to make sure that sword slash can ease into another sword slash. Or if you do a punch, you want to make sure the other arm is loaded for another punch once the first punch ends. If you're going to do a full body attack, right, then you kind of have to be a little more creative, in which you have to kind of do some off method stuff, all right? But it's situational, it's hard, and honestly, there's no one way to do it, but this is how I do it, all right? Oh yeah, if you guys want to see anything else, any other tutorials, because there's a lot of stuff I could possibly explain, like how I make things like this, or how I add details to stuff, or blah, 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 or even how I make other movie clips, which I will go over, by the way. If you guys want to learn how to make the movie clips, I will make them. I will teach teach people how to make them. It's not hard, and honestly, it's good for content reasons, honestly. All right, and it's helpful. But yeah, just if you want anything, just suggest it, comment. I don't really care, and I'll most likely do it. Of course, if there's multiple of you guys, I'll take my pick for the one that I feel is either most helpful or the one I like the best, depending if it's like a move you're suggesting or an animation clip you're suggesting. And that being said, just suggest more movie clips. I do like you guys' ideas. They're very, very nice to animate. I like making them. They're fun. So if you have something you want me to make, all right, okay, just suggest it. Honestly, just go out there and just suggest it in the comment section, all right? Or, if you need a Discord, I'll give a Discord link or whatever, or a Twitter or whatever. Just suggest stuff, man, all right? Have fun with it.